I'm Carroll Stearns. I live at 3015 Forestdale Drive, Burlington. I served in World War II as a pilot. I took my initial testing in Winston-Salem, and from Winston-Salem I was called up into Tennessee and then into Alabama and then to Avon Park, Florida, and from Avon Park, Florida to Georgia, and to Macon, Georgia.
You started out with what kind of aircraft?
Started out in a PT-17, and then came, drawing blanks.
That's okay. Went PT-17, and then what was your next airplane that you flew in?
Then flew in PT-17, then into a AT-6.
Okay, that's advanced trainer.
Advanced trainer. I skipped. Then from there they gave us some limited flight time in a P-40, which was a fighter airplane. And from there moved into P-51, which was a #1 fighter plane in our Air Force, and better than anybody else's Air Force had. From there, got transferred to Tallahassee, Florida, and after staying there about a week or 2 weeks, then transferred one morning. All of a sudden we were loaded up and off to New York.
Did anything happen before that, like coming home on furloughs and that sort of thing? Anything important in your life?
Yes, it get me tickled. Decided to get married, with leaving, not knowing when you're going to get back. We went ahead and got married, and went from there to New York. In New York, got on one of the big ships at that time, the Ile-de-France, and went across the Atlantic and came into northern Scotland. And from there, they moved us downfield to get into an air flight of space, and flew out of there for a while, and then was transferred to the 363rd Fighter Group, and transferred to a little field with a 900-foot runway, which you didn't know they could get that plane in the air from such a short distance. And then started missions flying into Germany to protect the B-17s and B-24s, and flew 25 missions. And on this particular last mission, strafing an airfield in Germany, and a plane got hit and knocked the coolant system out. It was able to fly for a while, but then the heat built up and it brought it to a stop and was forced to crash land it. And ended up with the underground in Holland, and worked away from one place to another. Ended up living with a doctor and his family for a while. Ended up living in holes in the ground for a while. And after a long stay from May 30th going down till March 17th, I got out of the Netherlands and made it back through the Belgium Army line, and then made it into Paris, and then transferred me over to England and a ship back home. And after a month or more with the ship, made it back, got into New York, and got on a train and came home.
So you had an interesting and varied and very fortunate for you and for Norma, your wife, a career where it could have been catastrophic, but it turned out pretty well with the help of the partisans and various underground people.
That's right. It was very helpful. Lived with them in the Royal Forest at one time in the Netherlands. Lived with a lot of Jewish people who were in the underground, being protected from the Germans, because the Germans were very determined in their effort to try to kill off the Jewish people.
Tell me a little bit about some of your feelings in going on missions, knowing the danger that was out there, because I'm sure you saw plenty of the kinds of things that didn't turn out good for some of the pilots and bombers and fighter pilots and crewmen and whatever.
We lost a lot of them that got hit by flak. The flak was very heavy, and the B-17s and the B-24s were the main targets. That of course, they're trying to hit the fighter planes to keep the fighter planes from hitting them. But the big planes were easier for them to hit, and a lot of those went down too.
The P-51 was a marvelous airplane. Compare it to, for example, a P-40.
Well, P-40 was an older plane. It didn't have the speed, didn't have the maneuverability that a plane like the P-51 had. It was better equipped to fight with a P-40 would be. It didn't have enough speed and enough maneuverability.
What were some of the other thoughts and feelings you had in being a combat pilot? Any particular things that happened during your time in the service that really stick out in your mind?
Well, I enjoyed flying that particular type of airplane, and actually in flying I never had any fear about getting hit. I was sure I was going to dodge around and not let them take a shot at me, but I'm not sure that was true either.
But one good thing about being young is that you think you're indestructible.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Right.
So like, I can make it all right.
Absolutely. Well, what did you learn from your service career that you've taken you through life? You've been a successful man, successful in business, and with any particular things that you learned from the service that you kind of carried with you through life?
Well, one thing is to keep up with what you're doing, know what you're doing, and that certainly you do learn things like that in service, because it's always very crucial because of the risk that you have and everything.
And they're risking life too, and risking business, aren't they?
That's right. It is. I can guarantee it. One of the very interesting things was the family. It was a young couple, a doctor and his wife, that we were hiding out with. They had a British pilot that was also hiding out with them, and stayed with them for 90 days, but then the underground decided to better move around before somebody picks up the idea that there is somebody else there. And didn't know at the time that she was expecting a baby either. And that's the one that comes to visit us every now and then now. He's a doctor. He has two daughters that are both doctors. So they were a really interesting family.
And Norma, could you come over here just a minute and could we get you in on the video? Can we do that?
I'm Norma Stearns, Carroll's wife. We had a son that was born while he was gone. And one of the interesting things was meeting this couple that Carroll was, that they had Carroll out with.
And they've been visiting you.
They have visited us several times, and they passed away, but the son, as Carroll said, he's been visiting us and keeping in touch with us.
And we visited them.
We did visit them, yeah, we went to some of the places that he, you know, that he stayed while he was over there.
So you made some interesting contacts then as a result of World War II.
We did.
Some that you certainly would never have had otherwise. Yeah.
Of course, it was a bad experience not knowing where, I thought he was a prisoner of war, but we never heard that he was. And one of his friends saw him crash land, and he wrote me a letter, his wife did, to tell me that he did see him crash land and get out of the airplane.
So that was comforting.
It was.
And how long was it before you actually heard that Carroll was safe?
About 10 months and 17 days.
That long? Okay.
So it was a good long while before you really knew the outcome.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, right.